This is a book review on one of my favorite books by someone who's been a great mentor to me for much of my last 10 years, if not more. Nancy Kline, who came to my daughter's graduation from school when she was head girl, Harriet, and Bryony was there too, who helped the Mount School, a Quaker school, with this whole concept of the thinking environment, and who trained Lee and myself in the whole concept. It's been profound for my own leadership development and for many of the leaders that I've worked with. It's a way of being, it's an operating system, as one of the teams described it. And so a more recent book, The Promise That Changes Everything, I Won't Interrupt You, by Nancy Kline, is something I want to discuss now with you. It's well worth listening to her. She's got a quiet, thoughtful voice, and have the patience not to rush on by in our very busy lives where people want to put things on 2 times speed or 1.5 times speed to get through things quicker. That's exactly the point she's trying to make about making time, showing respect for other people, really listening to them and not interrupting. So here are just 10 of the points in a book that is rich with stories, analogies, and lessons for us as leaders. And if you can adopt it as your operating system, you will be ahead of the competition, but you'll also be a better person, a better leader, a better partner in any personal relationships you have, a better friend, better father, better mother, better daughter, better son, better husband. So 10 points I wanted to pick up. Firstly, the importance of listening. She emphasizes that listening is more than just being quiet while someone else speaks. It's an active process that involves genuine engagement and empathy, showing respect for the speaker's thoughts and their feelings. There's 10 components of a thinking environment, but you can never spend too much time on listening. You've all been on courses, I'm sure, about speaking, public speaking, having confidence in speaking. A lot of people are very anxious about speaking in public. They don't get anxious about listening in public because it appears to be a very passive activity, which people don't know whether you are listening or not. Exemplified by that awful comment, "I hear what you say." Oh, that is just makes my skin crawl. What someone means is they don't agree with you at all. They're hearing, but they're not listening to what you're saying. And Oscar Trimboli, who is a very interesting person on the whole art of listening, is someone who I've also very much enjoyed his work. And he talks about the 5 levels of listening. Listening to yourself, there's an inner dialogue going on while you're listening to someone else. Listening for the content of what someone's saying, listening to the context in which they're saying it, listening to the unsaid. That's a really interesting. What's not being said, what's between the lines where you're picking it up on a somatic level, feeling in your body. And then finally, listening for meaning. So people might wrongly say, "I did nothing. I was only listening. I didn't feel like I added any value." No, if you're really listening, truly listening, you add huge value. And I know in my, 20, 25 years as a leadership coach, I'm constantly learning and growing. And one of the skills that you can never do too much of is tuning up your listening skills and really hearing people. And of course, the danger for someone who does public speaking, and I coach people to become better speakers, got certified by that in a fascinating course. The danger is that when you're at home, you switch off because you've been working all day listening, and you don't listen to your nearest and dearest and your friends. So that's where you have to, not trying hard, you need to almost like relax into it. But it's so linked with mindfulness and being present and grounded. But the importance of listening, number one. Two, avoiding interruptions. And that's what she promised. I will not interrupt you. And to know that you're going to be lucky and people won't interrupt you is so rare, because you go to the doctors. I think the average that doctors last before they interrupt a patient, something like 20 seconds on average. What hope have you explaining your situation when people keep interrupting? Nancy argues that interruptions are detrimental to clear thinking and to communication. When leaders avoid interruptions, it allows space for thought generation and encourages the sharing of ideas freely. So agreeing with someone in the way you're going to communicate with them, that maybe you go for 2 minutes and then stop yourself and then ask me a question, and I'll go for 2 minutes and I'll stop myself and then back. But have an agreement so you know you're not going to be like some of my wonderful Irish family gatherings where everybody in a room of 40 people is talking. No one's really listening. They're pleased to be with each other, and they do listen occasionally, but generally there is a temptation for people to transmit and not be on receive. And having spent 20 years of my military career, of which 10 years were in electronic warfare, listening to the Russians and listening to the East Germans as they were there, it's a real skill to really listen and pick up what's in there. What are they really saying? And to summarize and playing back. But the skill in this part is to avoid interrupting them. Let them speak and let them finish. And show that you're giving them the space and the time, not putting your hand up and as if you're, as they say when I was in IBM, people don't listen, they reload, ready to get in there and get their point in. So, importance of listening, avoiding interruptions. Time to think. She uses a whole concept of philosophy of time to think. She talks about the thinking environment, which encourages leaders to give themselves and their teams uninterrupted time to think. And this has been shown to boost productivity and innovation, clear thinking. And what more do we want? We're under great pressure to innovate, be creative. We've got artificial intelligence coming in, which is doing a lot of the work that people are currently doing. But we want you to have time to think. A lovely question is, are you paid to be busy or are you paid to think? You're paid to think. It's your time to think. It's your deep work, as Cal Newport talks about this, where you might spend an hour to 2 hours really thinking deeply about something, or going on walking meetings. Some of the best thinking you'll ever do is on a walking meeting. And I love having walking meetings with my clients. My friend Daniel, we walked in Hyde Park together when he came over from Israel. Others come up, CEOs come up and have lunch with me, and we go for a walk down by the canal with the dogs while they get the chance to speak, and I really listen. But walking meetings are great. So give yourself and give the important people in your life time to think. Number 4, boosting confidence. By you refusing to interrupt, as a leader, you send the message that you value your employees' thoughts and opinions. This increases their confidence and encourages them to share more often and more openly. It creates that respect, psychological safety, an indication that you really are genuinely interested in what they think. And they get more confident because they're not being steamrolled over, spoken over, having their thoughts assaulted. Don't assault people's thinking. You'd never assault them physically, so don't assault them verbally. So, boosting confidence, number 4. Number 5, the importance of respect. Nancy argues that not interrupting is a very powerful demonstration of respect to the other person. Respect and dignity. I was at Harvard on a wonderful program in which Donna Hicks taught me about dignity and the 10 components of dignity and the 10 destroyers of dignity. Everybody is born with the birthright to their dignity, but people need respect. You've got to show them respect. They don't have to earn it. You should give it to them. Showing that you value their thoughts and the way that you respect them. You just see people blossom when you show respect to them. 6, better decision making. The more senior you get, the more you should be moving into decision evaluation, perhaps on a weekly or a monthly basis of decisions that have been made lower down. You want to empower and elevate, bring people up so they can think for themselves. This is my intent. What's your intent to achieve my intent? Links with Captain David Marquet's Leadership is Language. But better decision, when ideas are allowed to flow without interruption, more perspectives come to light, leading to more informed and balanced decisions. So when you're not interrupting people, and if they are quiet, that's when they're thinking, that's when they're making decisions, until you have an agreement that if they really are stuck, they'll be saying, how far can they go in their thinking before you assault them and interrupt them? And how much further than that can you let them go in their thinking before you interrupt them? And then how much further than that can they go in their thinking? So they'll make better decision-making when you give them the space to think. And this is where people get confused. They're in a hurry, they're in a rush. But calm is contagious. Slow it down. Calm is contagious is a Navy SEAL motto. Chaos and fear and panic is also contagious. So better decision-making. Number 7, encouraging autonomy. The practice of not interrupting empowers team members by trusting them to come up with their own ideas and solutions, which fosters a sense of agency and autonomy. They can do this themselves. You really believe that they have the ability. It's this theory of expectation theory, it's called, that there was a study done in America by a headmistress of a school, and she brought in some psychologists. I think it was in California, very big school. She brought them in and she said, I've called you to this confidential meeting because I've picked the 3 of you as the best teachers in the school, and we have crammed your classes this coming year with some of the best, most unusual, brightest, smartest, cleverest children in the whole of the school. And under your tutelage and leadership and inspiration, we know they will produce some of the highest results in the school, if not in the state of California. We know you're capable of this. Good luck. And off you go. Oh, and please, this is confidential. Don't tell anybody else, none of the other teachers. Don't tell the parents. Just get on and do it. And we'll meet again in a year's time. A year later, they came back. What was it like? Asked the headmistress. First teacher said, that was one of the best years in my 30 years as a teacher that I have ever had. We thoroughly enjoyed ourselves. We had a lot of fun. We did things we had never done before because being so talented, unusual, different, and skilled, these children could really cope with anything. I just had such high expectations of their abilities, and they didn't let me down. Now, 1 or 2 of them took a little bit longer than the others, but the others helped them. We all mucked in, and we had just so much fun. We looked forward to every day of our classes. So different. The other teachers said the same. They concurred. And the headmistress then said, well, with the psychologist here, this was an experiment. And the teachers were getting a bit wise, and they went, okay, so what was the experiment? She said, we didn't specially select those children. They were talented and bright and different and unusual, but they were picked at random out of a sorting hat. just names were pulled out, and they went into your classes. The teacher went, how can that be? It's because we are 3 of the smartest, cleverest, most talented teachers in the school, isn't it? She went, that was the other part of the experiment. You were picked at random out of a hat too. And it's called expectation theory because the teacher, the headmistress expected that they'd do well. The teachers expected they'd do well because they're good pupils, talented, able pupils. And the pupils picked up the confidence of the teacher and the expectations of the teacher in them and kept going the extra mile with those who normally would have struggled and been left on the wayside. So encouraging that autonomy is very important. Top tip number 8 in the promise is creating a safe environment. We talk about psychological safety. Leaders who commit to not interrupt create a safe space where team members feel comfortable expressing themselves. This leads to an open and an inclusive workplace, a safe environment, just like we were describing with those pupils who often in other classes would have been criticized, run down in fear and not feeling good about themselves. And therefore, when that happens, what goes on within our brains, we've now done neural analysis. This is called the prefrontal cortex, left and right, ventrolateral prefrontal cortex. That's where our executive function comes. In the making of the brain, we have the reptilian brain, and then the next part of the brain, the mammalian brain, and then the human bit, the sort of the latest bit of the brain. And it's in that prefrontal cortex when we have the freeze, flight, or fight response. That's when we don't feel safe and we stop thinking, because all we're trying to do is either freeze or flee or fight. So create a psychologically safe environment, and they, in that safe space, will think well for themselves. And if they don't think well, you've made them stupid. Congratulations, by creating an unsafe, a fearful environment. Number 9 in the promise. Active listening leads to innovation. Touched on it briefly before, but by actively listening to others, when we're doing a round or in pair work, you're really listening to others. Leaders may uncover new ideas and innovative solutions that might otherwise have remained unspoken. There's a book by Susan Cain called Quiet, in Praise of Introverts in a World That Doesn't Shut Up, where she realized that you need an environment like the thinking environment, with this promise that I won't interrupt you, I won't assault your thinking. So the quiet ones, the introverts, often are allowed to speak, because when it's a free-for-all, normally it's the extroverts who do too much talking. The introverts don't get the chance to speak without having their thoughts assaulted. And that's when you get some wonderful innovation, because they've got the ideas. Ideas do not have rank, they have merit. And finally, number 10, developing patience. The commitment to not interrupt requires and cultivates patience. Leaders learn to give others the time they need to articulate their thoughts, which can lead to deeper understanding and deeper insight. So if I was to be working with you and we were doing a thinking environment session, I would begin by asking you, what do you want to think about? And what are your thoughts? Having explained to you that I won't interrupt you. And when you're quiet, that's when you're thinking. We say waves of thinking, and then a pause, and then another wave of thinking. But don't interrupt unless they say, that's me, ask me another question. And if they do say that, then you can then say, what more do you think or feel or want to say? So they're going to go deeper. If you want to go what else, they're going to go wider, but what more is deeper. So there are just 10 of the gems that are in Nancy Kline's book, The Promise. I hope you enjoy it. Certainly read it and definitely listen to it. And I'm sure you'll get a lot from it. Good luck.